Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video we're going to be performing an Nmap scan to find open ports on our target network. Alright, so let's get started. So as I've mentioned, we're going to be using Nmap. Now if you don't know what Nmap is essentially a network scanning tool that allows you to scan a network, and obviously it'll give you results depending on what parameters or variables that you set the scan to be scanned with. Alright, now we have already got information about our IP address. Alright, as we have already looked in previous videos, regarding the whois information and subdomains. So we know an IP address and we know our target, or we know our domain. And now we need to get some more information regarding what ports are open on our target or on our target network. Now for this demonstration, we're going to start using Metasploitable 2. The reason being is Metasploitable 2 is a fantastic demonstration, or a way of demonstrating how ports can be exploited. Alright, so I have Metasploitable 2 open and running here, and I'm just going to log in. So the default credentials are MSF admin. Alright, so once you're logged into MSF admin, what you need to do is you need to get your local IP address on your local network. So we have already looked at how to build our virtual lab, and now more specifically we're going to be looking at how to check for our IP address. Alright, so there we are. Now looking at the IP address, we use the command ifconfig, and we have the inet address right here, and that is the local IP address that we're going to be using to scan. So it's 192.168.1.106. Yours could be different depending on the router or the network configuration that you're using. So let's get started with Nmap. So you can launch Nmap from your terminal, which is really very simple. So let me just clear this up. Fantastic. All right, now we can get started. So the syntax is very simple. All right, but first I want to look at the Nmap help menu. So we can do this by typing in Nmap and followed by the 2 dashes and help. That will enumerate the help menu. So if we click at the help menu, this is a fantastic starting point, or a reference that you can keep on looking at if you're still a beginner to Nmap, and it has all the commands and what these commands will do respectively. So there's a lot to look in here, and we'll be using this as a guideline or as a template as to how we're going to be performing our scans. So we know the IP address of the Metasploitable 2 virtual machine, which in this case is acting as a web server, so it is fantastic for simulating a real-world attack. And again, I do not recommend you doing this on a network in which you do not have permission to do this on. So I would recommend that you have written permission before doing this on any actual physical network. But in this case, we have already created our virtual lab, and it's fantastic. So let's get started here. So to use Nmap, it's very simple. As you have seen, we use the Nmap command. And after this, to perform a basic scan, we just enter the IP address. So we know it is 192.168.1.106. All right, that is the IP address. Now, if we hit enter, this is going to perform a basic scan, essentially scan all the ports that are currently open, and we'll be looking at more information depending on what is returned to us. So I'm going to hit enter, and immediately it scans for the ports. Now, I want to just give you some more information about Nmap. Nmap by default will scan for 1,000 ports. That is by default. You can, however, configure this to your liking, and this is where you get more advanced with Nmap. Now, as you can see, it's returned ports. Fantastic. We have an actual result, and this is great because we can understand how this is all working out. Now, given for the results, as you can see, it's going to tell you the host is up, which means it performed a ping scan to check whether the host was up. It gives you the latency information. It'll then show you the amount of ports that it did scan and information about the ports that were closed. So 977 closed ports, and these are the ports that are currently open. Okay, so let's look at how the ports or how the information is displayed to us. So first you have your port, and you have your state and the service. So the port is simply the port number. If you've learned about TCP, IP and ports, you will already know pretty much all of the ports and what services are running on these ports. The state is essentially whether or not the port is open. Now the state could alternate between open, closed or filtered. Alright, so when the port is closed, that means that the port is closed. When the port is filtered, it means that Nmap is unable to determine whether the port is open or closed. When it's open, it means it's open. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, so as we have here, we have port 21, which we all know is the FTP port. Port 22 is the SSH port. port 23 is the telnet port, etc., etc. Alright, so we have a good idea of what ports are running here and what services are running behind them. Awesome, this is exactly what we wanted to look at in this video. We wanted to look at what ports we could, looking at how to scan for ports on a target, and indeed we have found the ports on the target. Alright, now let's look at one more command that is very, very important. As I've said during a penetration test, one of the most important steps is documenting your scan. So, and that is done by essentially outputting your scan results and saving it so that you have some accountability behind your scan and you can date your scans, and actually it acts as a proof of work in terms of definition. So it's essentially acting as documentation. So this is always good practice if you're a penetration tester. Alright, so we're going to perform the scan again. So Nmap, we're just performing a basic scan. So we'll list the IP address. And now we use the parameter or the command OG. Alright, so we use the dash and a capital G to output. And now we want to output it onto the root, onto my desktop. And I want to save it as a txt file. So I'm just going to call it nmap underscore results.txt. And it's going to perform the scan and it's going to scan it and it's going to save it to the txt file on my desktop. There we are, nmap results.txt, and let it just open up. There we are, and it has scanned and it has returned all the results. It may not have returned them in an appropriate format, but it can always be reformatted, and this acts as a fantastic way of documentation, because as you can see, it gives you timestamps, and that is again a fantastic way of documentation. So that's going to be it for this video. We looked at how to perform some port scanning. In the next video, we're going to be looking at OS and service fingerprinting, which is also very, very important in terms of information gathering. So I'll be seeing you in the next video.